So today I was going to talk to you about a $4.3 million business loan that I had been involved in. And I started to work on the video for you and I started to think about what the headline should be for the video. And it felt a little clickbaity, but I went ahead and kind of softened it up and decided to post this video for you guys anyways, because a $4.3 million business loan is not something most people are ever part of. But I think it has some important lessons on what you should think about when you think about business loans and what it takes to get a business loan that big. So a couple of months ago, I finished doing some work with a company. Full transparency, it's an existing company. They've been around for quite a long time. They've had a successful track record, but they're wanting to expand the business and grow the offices that they have. They're in the healthcare sector, and so it requires physical locations for them to do their business. They wanted to expand those, and they're going to use what I called in the work we did together a hub and spoke approach, which means that they were going to have a central location, but then use spoke or satellite offices to kind of create other business opportunities and then refer larger procedures back to that hub or center locations. And so that was going to require a significant amount of money. The good news is that, as I said, they were existing business, so they had revenue coming in, but we still had to create some documents for the loan process for the lenders that they were going to work with that would really convince those lenders on why this plan made sense for them, why they were wanting to grow now, and why it was going to take that much money. So the things that it took to really get a business loan of this large started with really good documentation that tells the story of where the business has been and where it's going. And when I'm talking about documentation, because of the type and size of loan they were going for, I participated in writing a business plan for them and doing financial projections. And the key to preparing those documents was really telling the story of the folks that were involved. So they had a very seasoned team of owners, 3 of them, and then they had 20 other doctors that worked for them. And even outside of the founders, it was an extremely seasoned team of people. So that's lesson number 1 for you: to get something as large as $4.3 million. And you should take note, since most of you are here to talk about startups, whether that's as a loan, which is not normal for a startup, or if it's equity for a startup, you've probably noticed that I'm always talking to you about the importance of your team. And that was still what we focused on, even though we weren't going for equity. We were going for a business loan for these folks. So team always matters. So I focused on the story around these successful owners, how they'd already grown one part of the business, and not just them, but this entire team they had built around them of 20 very seasoned professionals. Of course, since we're talking about the differences between a loan or going in and getting investors, the next thing that really helped them in the story was that they had been generating revenue and a decent amount for quite some time. When you're looking at a loan versus equity, lenders like to see that they're going to get paid back. And the way that happens is through cash flow coming off the business. That's why, as a startup, it's really hard to get money. So we started with the team, and then we focused on what they had been doing, the revenue they had been generating for quite a long time. Then we focused on, this is the third piece you need to think about when it takes what it takes to get a deal this large, and how that also translates to equity in the startup world. Next, we focused on the market size. So in the area that they are in New York, not New York City, but in New York, the area was growing pretty substantially. So the market itself was not shrinking. It wasn't seeing population leave that area. It was seeing people come into that area and want to move there. I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say that it was probably somewhere around 23% growth in the last 5 years or something like that, which is pretty significant growth. So what does that tell a lender that is wanting to give or would be giving $4.3 million to a business? Told them that it had a great team, told them they had been successfully running an existing business and they had revenue coming off that could help make payments on this loan. And then this third piece told them that the area was growing. So the market share that this business could capture with this new hub and spoke approach was going to be growing. Now, what about, I said it had been growing 23% over the last 5 years. What about what it's gonna do? So the argument could have been from the lenders that we were working with, well, it's grown 23% for the last 5 years. What makes you think that's going to continue? And so we did our research, and there were estimates for population growth in that area. By the way, the population growth wasn't just across the board, so every age group, but we focused on the age groups that they worked well with. I'll talk about that next. But the market was planning to grow not at 23% over the next 5 years, but a significant annual growth rate per year anticipated all the way through 2025. So we had market share that was growing significantly. And although it wasn't going to grow as significantly, it was planned to grow and not shrink over the next 3 or 4 years, right? So I mentioned I would talk to you next about the target market. So we started with the team, then we focused on existing revenue, right? You could substitute existing revenue for the traction or milestones that you've accomplished if you're a startup and don't have that type of thing. Then we focused on the market size, and then we focused on the target market. So think about how these two things work together. We focused on the market size, 23% over 5 years, and then good growth afterwards. Not only that, but we were able to show the lenders based on our research that the target market, the exact group of potential patients that this healthcare company was focusing on, was the group that was having the largest amount of growth within that market. So it was a very, very powerful story of a company that not only had done some great things in the past and had a lot of experience, but that they were recognizing the growth in the market and that this plan was specifically built to help them attack that growth in their market. If you think about all these things together, it tells a great story to a lender, or if you were to change up a little bit of these pieces, take out the revenue and add in milestones as a startup founder, it tells a great story that you recognize what's going on in your market and you're coming up with ways to attack that market. When it comes to a $4.3 million business loan, that story is no different or has very little difference as the story that a startup founder needs to be telling an investor, right? So think about these pieces when you're drafting your story. What's the story that you are telling in your business plan if you're preparing one, or your pitch deck, your executive summary, in your investor documentation? What is the story you are telling that should convince an investor? By the way, technically, a lender is kind of an investor. They're putting money in, right, to your business. What's the story that you're telling to these folks? Think about that as you draft your documents. How powerful is the story? And don't get so wrapped up in the fact that you know it's a powerful story. Make sure the deck itself is able to tell that story to someone who is freshly looking at this opportunity. In the meantime, if that information helps you, and if you're thinking about two things as it relates to business loans, first of all, if you're thinking that you may need to use business loans either now or in the future to grow your business, I've got a great course I'd love for you to check out. It's called the Business Loan Formula. I'll walk you through exactly how lenders look at loan opportunities, how they evaluate them, and what they approve them or decline them based on. Or if you've ever thought about turning a side hustle into a business and you're looking for ways to make extra income, I've recently launched a new course called the Commercial Loan Broker in a Box. I teach you everything I've learned in my time being a commercial lender in the C-suite at a bank, teach you everything about how those commercial loans work so that you can then start your own business helping businesses get loans in order to grow their business. Anyways, until next time, I hope that helps. Hope you find your voice.